We waited, and at last our expectations were fulfilled, writes the Serbian Bishop Nikolai of Ohrid, describing the Easter service at Jerusalem. When the patriarch sang, "Christ is risen," a heavy burden fell from our souls. We felt as if we also had been raised from the dead all at once, from all around. The same cry resounded like the noise of many waters. "Christ is risen," sang the Greeks, the Russians, the Arabs, the Serbs, the Copts, the Armenians, the Ethiopians. One after another, each in his own tongue, in his own melody. Coming out from the service at dawn, we began to regard everything in the light of the glory of Christ's resurrection. And all appeared different from what it had yesterday. Everything seemed better, more expressive, more glorious. Only in the light of the resurrection does life receive meaning. What I just read is the very beginning of an article titled "The Meaning of the Great Fast" by Kallistos Ware, a bishop who reposed recently in the Lord, beloved bishop, who had translated this book, the Lenten Triodion. And that he wrote an article, "The Meaning of the Great Fast," which is at the very beginning of this book. And so he's quoting Bishop Nikolai there. I think it's a very good introduction. And so this leads us off into my discussion about Great Lent and Holy Week, which is the topic of today's stream. Hello to the people in the chat. Thank you for the greetings. I have been thinking about doing this stream for a while. I had meant to do it at the beginning. It would have been, I think, better to have done a stream on Great Lent maybe before Great Lent had started for the benefit of the people who would watch it. But Great Lent got going, and all of a sudden we were pretty busy with services and this and that, and maybe my focus was less on streaming during that time. But we're here now. So this book, which I might recommend this book, might be a good one to add to your library, the Lenten Triodion. This is basically the service book for Great Lent, and it takes us from the week of the publican and the Pharisee all the way up to Great and Holy Saturday, and that's where it ends. And following that, we go into another book, the book which would be a good supplement to this, which follows, is the Festal Manaean. But so this book was translated from Greek by Mother Mary and Kallistos Ware, and that's my introduction for today's stream. So the period of Great Lent. This is the time of the year. This is the acceptable time. It's the accepted time. This is when we put aside everything else and we focus on our spiritual lives. And our spiritual life really is the most important thing. It's the most important thing in our life, and we set everything else aside to focus on what is important during this time. Now, it has been said that Great Lent is it has been called a tithe, an offering of a tithe for the whole year. So how is Great Lent a tenth of the year? Well, that is explained by Abba Dorotheos, and here's another reading recommendation that I have for people. Abba Dorotheos, Practical Teaching on the Christian Life. Now, many people will read the Ladder of Divine Ascent by St. John Climacus for Great Lent. That's a very common book that people will read. I like that book myself. I recommend it. It's a little perplexing for people sometimes. You read it and it brings up a lot of questions. It's kind of a difficult text, but if you have a blessing from your priest, I think that's also a good reading. But if you've read the latter already and you want to move on to another text, this is another text. It's pretty simply written. This is like another gold standard type book that people read during Great Lent. So maybe if you haven't if you've read the latter already, you want to move on to something else. If you kind of like monastic type literature, I would definitely recommend it. And he has a section in here in which he breaks down how Great Lent is a tithe of the year. So how many days are there in a year? There's 365 days in a year. And so he explains that, so during the fast, actual Great Lent proper is actually counted the 5 weekdays. The weekends are technically outside of Lent, which is why we don't do prostrations in church on the weekends. But so if you count 5 times 6, which would be 30 days, that's the 5 weeks, 5 days out of that comes up to 30 days. Then you count the 5 days of Holy Week plus Saturday and half of Sunday, because we start celebrating our services at midnight, and we're up half of the night doing our services. So that's a half. He counts that as a half day. So 30 plus 5 more days plus Saturday and a half day of Sunday, that's 36 and a half days, which is exactly 1/10 of the year. So he breaks it down. I thought that was a very interesting section of that book. So I do recommend that. This book has been called The ABCs of Monasticism by the Optina elders. And so I follow the Optina elders. I feel that they are authoritative. If you haven't seen my stream on them, you can go and look it up. They were these elders in Russia who lived in the 18th, 19th century, 19th and 20th century, and they had displayed many spiritual gifts. And so go and watch that next if you haven't watched it. I recommend that. So now I want to get into my next segment here. I want to talk about fasting, the fasting rules for Great Lent, because I have done a stream dedicated entirely to fasting, but I just want to mention that the fasting rules that we use are actually monastic rules, similar to how the services of the church are actually monastic services. Only in monasteries do you see only monks are keeping the full cycle of services. And we as laymen, we just pick a few of the services that we're able to do, and we do the best that we can. But in the monasteries, they do the whole cycle. And it's similar to fasting, similar in the way we fast, the way we keep the fast. The monastic rule is much more difficult. It's much fuller. The fasting rules actually for monastics is, for example, the first week of Great Lent, they don't eat anything the first 3 days until after Vespers Wednesday. They don't eat anything. Maybe they'll drink some water. And then some laymen will keep this, but very few. And thereafter, the actual rule is to only eat one meal a day during the entirety of Lent, usually a small meal after Vespers. So you see, Christianity, in my view, and I think that the fathers would probably agree with me that Christianity in its heart is a monastic religion. And we as laymen, we just try to approximate it and do the best that we can. And so we don't expect laymen to be eating one meal a day for the entirety of Great Lent. Most priests probably wouldn't even recommend this first 3 day whole first 3 days of no eating. But yeah, we're fasting. It's a difficult time. It's a stressful time, but it helps us. And the whole point of this, the whole point of Great Lent, is we're purifying ourselves. We're purifying ourselves of impurities of flesh and spirit. We're controlling our passions so that once purified, when we get to Pascha, we can behold it we can take communion with the clear conscience. That's really the only time. It's really the one time of the year that we can come to communion where our conscience is completely free and clear, because we have prepared ourselves and we're really made ready to partake worthily of Holy Communion on that day. And so I wanted further talking about fasting. Let me just mention while I'm on the subject. Some people also will keep 3-day fast at the beginning of Holy Week, a similar fast, but it's not a universal practice. But on Great and Holy Friday, it's the one day of the year where, first of all, there's no liturgy served. It's the only day of the year where there's no liturgy served on Great and Holy Friday, because it's the day of the crucifixion. And on that day, it's actually prescribed an absolute fast for the whole day. No water, nothing passes through your throat for the whole day. I've never done it myself. Some lay people who are able to do it, they will. I don't think it would be, for myself, it probably wouldn't be advisable. And I'll explain why. For me, because of my mental illness, this time of year, I actually, it's kind of a stressful time, because the fasting, the increased amount of time spent in church, the services, and also the holiness factor. And let me explain what I mean by that. There's something called Jerusalem syndrome. And it's when people who go to Jerusalem, the Holy Land, who have mental illnesses, and the holiness of the place actually kind of makes people's mental illnesses active. And maybe if you have a propensity for psychosis, you will actually become psychotic if you go to the Holy Land. And for this reason, there was a pilgrimage that our church was organizing, and I asked for a blessing to go to the Holy Land. And so they kicked this up to the bishop, and my bishop actually kicked it up to his spiritual father, who was a monk at the Kiev Caves Lavra, and who apparently has the gift of clairvoyance. And he said, "No, we don't give you." I did not get a blessing to go, and it's probably a wise decision. My mental illness does get active. I have serious mental illness, and I'm like, without medication, I'm like the worst of the worst almost. I mean, with the medication, glory to God, I can function and keep a job and everything. And I actually present myself fairly normally, I think, at least on YouTube. So, but yeah, so the holiness of the place, and also, so what I was talking about, coming back around to Holy Week, the holiness of the time, because Pascha is a holy day. There's a lot of grace, like picture like the heavens opening up and rain starting to come down, like torrents of rain. That's what Holy Week is like. That's what Holy Friday, Saturday, Sunday, leading up to Pascha, all of a sudden these well springs of grace start coming out of heaven and pouring down on the church and on the members of the church. This has to do with everybody praying. All Orthodox Christians are in church praying intensely at this time. But this affects me sometimes. And so leading up to Pascha, I'd say maybe a half or a third to a half of the time when Pascha rolls around and I'm standing in a church and it's midnight, I'm actually partially psychotic half of the time. This also has to do with the fact that normally I take my medication at a certain time, but the medication knocks me out. It makes me sleep. If I were to take it at my normal time, I wouldn't be able to, drive to the service even, and let alone stand through it. So I try to take, part of my medication earlier in the afternoon, and then maybe the rest when I get home. But even doing that, using that method, I still get triggered sometimes. I remember last year I was psychotic for like 3 days. Pascha, in the next 3 days, I was actually psychotic. Probably nobody knew it. I didn't tell you if I didn't tell anybody. I wasn't acting out or anything. So the reason I want to bring that up is because I wanted to ask for prayers. I mean, if I have all these people viewing my streams, I might as well ask for a prayer. I mean, kind of, I don't ask for money here, but I can ask for your prayers. I'm not doing this for money. This is my offering, my free will offering to you guys. And, but I do ask that you pray for me. So for this Pascha, pray that my illness might be subdued or something. Find the words, whatever words you feel right, whatever you feel it would be the appropriate prayer for me. But I do ask your prayers. But also, this is to say that, the other point is keeping the fast is not necessarily the most important thing. If you're weak, you have maybe you have some sort of illness. If you're old, if you have a mental illness or whatever, and you can't keep the fast, because if I were to keep a fast that strictly, it would also, it's a stressful thing to go a whole day without drinking water or anything. And if I were to do that, it might make my illness even worse. And you who are watching might have something else, something similar. Maybe you are diabetic and you need to eat or whatever it might be. So the other question I wanted to answer about fasting, I often get a question: what do you eat during the fast? And usually my answer is I start the morning with a smoothie. If you're going to eat breakfast, try a smoothie. And I'm going to share with you my recipe. I've been doing this recipe, the exact same recipe, basically for, I don't know how I got started doing this, but I've been doing it for years on end. And the recipe I use is frozen banana, avocado, frozen berries, protein powder. And you can choose. Oh, I have a question. I'll address that soon. Sorry. And you can choose which protein powder you want to put in there. A good one that I would recommend would be pea protein and brown rice protein. That's probably the best readily available combination protein powder that you can put in there. I put a scoop of peanut butter in there or some sort of nut butter or something like that. Throw some water in it or nut milk if you want. Swirl it up, and there you go. You got breakfast. And that seems to get me through the day. A tip, the thing about avocados that are difficult, that's part of the thing about avocados that is hard, is you have to time their ripeness. So you always have to be like going to the store and taking them out of the refrigerator at the right time and letting them sit, and they take a couple days to get ripe, right? Well, they start now they have available frozen avocados, which they freeze them when they're already ripe. And so what I do is I take it out of the refrigerator the night before and let it thaw. And there you go. You don't have to time your ripening of avocados. So that is my recipe for a breakfast, for a smoothie for Lent. Lunch, if you eat bread, have a peanut butter sandwich or peanut butter and jelly sandwich, whatever. I don't eat bread. I'm celiac, so I eat other things. And for dinner, maybe you want learn how to make bean soup from scratch. Throw a little bit of bean soup on some rice, maybe a handful of nuts for a snack, maybe a little salad with maybe a little shrimp on there, And it's for most people that'll get you through. If you are a person who works physical labor for a job, don't try to go no oils. Use some coconut oil when you cook or something like that. You probably will be able to get a blessing to eat some fish if you're working a physical labor job. So you don't have to be too strict with it if for reasons of health. And one more thing, another trick. I don't know if this is if you might consider this cheating or something like that, but I have here something that I lift weights, and when I go to the gym, I put a scoop of this into my water with some flavoring, and this is essential amino acid powder. What is an amino acid? An amino acid is something that is known as proteinogenic. That is protein creating. Amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. And there are, depending on which ones you're counting, there are between 20 and 22 that are genetically coded in our bodies, 22 amino acids that make up the proteins that our body is going to use. 9 of them are essential, meaning you have to get them from your diet. This product, if you go for bulk supplements, it has the 9 essential amino acids in the proper ratio. And so if you might be feeling soreness, or whatever, having some trouble from the difficulty of the fasting, this could be a supplement that you could use. It's completely vegan, completely safe. I don't know if some people might think you're cheating or whatever, but if I'm lifting weights, I might need another little scoop of that. So that was that recommendation. The question I have is, do you feel it's demonic torture? If strong demons only come out with fasting and prayer, would that be the fasting of you or your spiritual father, or who? Well, probably both. I'm not demonically possessed, is what I've been told. I'm not possessed, but it may be, there's, well, I'll put it this way. When I am in the throes of psychosis, it does feel like torture. It can feel like torture and suffering. And it's probably demons who are causing it. So yeah, I have been told that this kind comes out by nothing but fasting and prayer. But I have never really undertaken to try to heal myself through fasting and prayer of this illness. I just take my medicine. I don't really have a choice in taking the medicine. I'm forced to, really. But if I was going to try to heal myself with fasting and prayer, how would I know if I'm healed if I didn't stop taking the medicine to see if I was well without the medicine? So it's kind of a catch-22 in that way. Oh, you don't mean I'm possessed, but we can all be tortured. Yeah. So the fasting and prayer would involve fasting of the person who is so afflicted. Thank you for the question. And other people, whoever's watching, you're welcome to throw questions in the chat. I'll answer them the best that I can. So talking about food, my next topic I want to cover is the blessing of Koliva that we do on Friday of the first week of the fast. So after liturgy, there is a little service that is served in church, and they bless Koliva. Koliva is boiled wheat mixed with honey. And what is the meaning of this? Why do we do this every year? This is to commemorate an event that happened, and it was in the year 3. What was the year? I didn't write the year down. It was like 386 or something like that. It was in the 4th century when the Byzantine emperor Julian the Apostate, he had this idea, and it was not a good idea. But what he did was he took blood from animals that were sacrificed to idols, and he went and he sprinkled the blood on all the food in the whole city of Constantinople, because he wanted to defile the Christians who were keeping the fast. And the way that we were delivered from this was that the great martyr Theodore Tyro appeared to the Bishop of Constantinople in a dream, and he warned him, and he told him that the food had been defiled, and he said, "Tell your Christians to eat boiled wheat with honey the first week of the fast, so that they won't defile themselves." So that's the story behind the eating of Koliva, on the blessing of Koliva on the first Friday of Great Lent. So see, I'm trying to find little things. This stream about Great Lent, I didn't want to just go through and say, we commemorate this person on this week and that person on that week, and something, very general things that I'm trying to find a few things here that you might not have heard about, something new to keep this stream interesting. If you want to read just a basic general, survey of what is Great Lent, or even what is the Christian faith, here's another reading recommendation I'm bringing for you. And this is one that's commonly recommended in the Russian Church abroad. This is The Law of God by Archpriest Seraphim Slobodskoy, and it's a common catechism book. It's written for maybe 8th grade or high school level, something like that. It's pretty simple, pretty basic, straightforward. It covers the whole faith from beginning to end, and I do recommend that book. So, moving on, while we're on the first Sunday of Orthodoxy, or the first week of Great Lent, the first Sunday of Great Lent, well, this is called the Sunday of Orthodoxy. And we celebrate the restoration of the icons and the Triumph of Orthodoxy. So this happened in the 9th century. And there is a service called the Rite of the Triumph of Orthodoxy. And this is the service at which the anathemas are proclaimed. And this is kind of a starkly different service than almost any other. It's kind of unique. And it is not served in very many places. Parishes won't serve it usually. It's usually only served in large cathedrals or large monasteries. And even then, not all of them do it. So this is a service that is often misunderstood. People think of it as like in an angry service, or it's condemning people or whatnot. And that's not really the meaning of the term anathema, but in the term anathema really is referring to setting something apart, and it's done out of love. And I'm not going to get too deep into this service or talking about it, but I want to mention a few things. First of all, in the Russian church, the anathemas are only actually the part of the service where they say the anathemas of this heresy and that heresy and this teaching and so forth. Those are actually only proclaimed in the Russian church abroad. Moscow Patriarchate monasteries and cathedrals do not serve that portion of the service. So it's a very rarely done service. It's not done. I don't know I'm not very familiar with Greek or other traditions. And if you know, let me know in the chat or in a comment below. I'd like to know. But here's another reading that I'm full of reading recommendations for you today. It's Orthodox Word number 298. And it has an article written by Bishop Irene, who used to be a bishop here in my diocese. And I recommend this here. And I'm gonna just read a quote from this article that he goes through the whole service and explains it and gives the background. And he says about this service, far from being a ritual of hatred or condemnation, the central prayer of the Rite of the Triumph of Orthodoxy reveals it to be chiefly a service of compassionate love. And this is kind of like, you see people, you might see this on the internet today, like people who, there's accusations of rigorism or whatever, like people who are keeping to the strict, true orthodoxy, traditional orthodoxy are often maybe accused of not having love. But actually, it is not love if you are allowing, if you, for example, to allow someone to be a heretic, to go along with something that's wrong, that's not right, the church is condemned, to not call it out, that is actually not love. So this is an excellent article, and it's sort of a good, compassionate approach to explain to these kind of people who have this mindset that that traditional orthodoxy is, they're really judging the tradition of the church. And I think he explains it well. Bishop Irenae is, if you don't know who he is, you could look him up. He has some, there's some material online about him, but he was a brilliant scholar, actually, he went to Oxford. He went to Oxford on scholarship, and he rose up, and he graduated and became the chair of religious studies at Leeds University, and he left it all to go and become a monk. But he had studied all the fathers and all this, and speaks multiple languages. Brilliant person. And I used to get to, see him around a little bit because he used to be in my diocese. So that's a good article. Okay, moving on. What is next? What is my next topic? Okay, so we go through Lent, and now we're coming up, as we are today, we're probably at, I would say, maybe the 10th hour. Okay, so if you haven't started preparing for Pascha, it's not too late. It's not even the 11th hour. And even if you come at the 11th hour, you're okay. Just start preparing when you can, because all will be forgiven at the resurrection. But here we are, 6th week of Lent. We're about to come into Holy Week. And in preparation for Holy Week, I do recommend that you take off Friday. You should not work on Friday of Holy Week. And if you have enough vacation time, take off Thursday as well. Think about taking Monday off, because you're going to be up all night, Saturday night, Sunday into Sunday morning, worshiping God. And you might be too tired to go to work on Monday. You might not want to you might not want to go when the time rolls around. So think about taking some time off from work. I know a person in my parish, and he takes off the whole week from work every year so he can focus on the services. And this is a good thing, because this is our life. This is our true life. Everything else, this is what's important: our spiritual life, our relationship with God. Not our work life, not anything else that's going on. This is what is really important in life, and it's time to focus and concentrate, and it's time to focus on what really matters, on what really matters in life. So expect some sort of temptation, some sort of trial. It could happen on Holy Week. It could have happened during the whole of Great Lent. There's probably you might face some sort of trial or temptation. And if you don't face a trial or temptation, then maybe God has abandoned you, because God chastises those who he loves. So if you did not have any sort of temptation, maybe you better examine yourself, because maybe you're not doing something right. Also, be sensitive now. We're coming into Holy Week. People are tired. They've been fasting for 6-7 weeks. They're starting to have more demands placed on them by the church. They're expected to come to all of these services. They're tired out. They're worn out from the fasting. They still have their lives, their children, their jobs. They still have to go to the store and cook food and all of this. And so there's pressure being put on people. And this might be where temptation comes from, a trial. Someone might lose their temper or become short with you. So be sensitive around your fellow Christians. Try to be patient and loving around them while you're in church this week. Another good reason to take time off. So let's see. Starting Wednesday of Holy Week, also, this is something that many people don't observe, or they're just not aware of. Starting Wednesday of Holy Week, we actually stop doing prostrations in church, except for in front of the Plastinica, also called the Epitaphion, which is the burial shroud that we bring out. And so I couldn't find the reason why we stopped doing the prostrations on Wednesday. And I suspect there is a reason. But my guess, or the way I've always interpreted this is completely my own reasoning, is we've been spending all this time all these weeks fasting and saying, Lord, I'm a sinner, have mercy on me, all of this. We kind of have our heads down, so but we're starting to get ready to celebrate Pascha, the resurrection, right? So the way I think about it, in my own mind, okay, this is just me speaking again, but it's like it's time to lift up your head because your redemption draweth nigh. That's the scriptural passage. It starts to, this burden, from this heaviness, this, almost morose, you could say, this, oh, I'm a sinner. We're starting to lift that slowly and slowly, so that by the time, we're trying to get you in a good mood, because we're going to be joyful. We want to spread joy by the time we get to Pascha. So we stopped doing the prostrations in church on Wednesday. And Holy Friday, this is a very solemn day. It would be entirely appropriate to wear black when you come to church on Great and Holy Friday. So if you're into that kind of thing, wear black. And then we're coming up to Pascha, and we start with the reading of the Acts, midnight office, matins and liturgy served starting at midnight, and then we're gonna have a meal, following that. So we're gonna be up all night. This is a party for Christians, basically. Our partying is worshiping God, and time to forgive all, to dress up, dress nice, be ready to receive. God is going to pour out His grace on the people in the church, and the services itself, what we're singing, what we're saying Christ is risen, and just that itself, we're going to start putting us into a joyful mood. It's time to celebrate. Everything is forgiven. And so I wish everybody a blessed Pascha. I think that is probably what I have to say for today. Someone says, greetings from Middle Tennessee. Greetings to you, sir. Sir or ma'am, I don't know. Probably a sir, it looks like. So that was it. I know this is a solo episode, and I've been focusing more on my interviews, because the interviews get a lot more views. So I think people like the interviews. But I but I wanted to do a solo episode because I like to do these. I don't care if they get fewer views, that's fine. I know some people watch them, some people like them, and I like doing them. This is part of the reason I started this channel, was because I like public speaking. I wanted to get more experience and practice doing it. And so I'm not going to stop doing these solo episodes if I have anything to say about it. So again, I'm asking for your prayers, and thank you to everybody who is watching, people who are making comments in the chat. And that's my stream for today. Christ is risen.